everyone, it's Karen here. Welcome to another video from me. And the theme of this month's Lavinia Creative Challenge is Spring Blooms. So here I've created some inspiration for you using Floral Wreath, the gorgeous little fairy couple called Rory and Darcy, Flutterby, and then a mixture of foliage stamps, lavender, field grass and maple leaf one. And then I've used bit of sparkle, bit of Posca pen to decorate it. The card that I'm using today is multifarious cardstock from Lavinia. I've used an A5 which I folded in half to create an A6 size. The inks that I'm using: Shaded Lilac, Distress Oxide, Dusty Concord in Distress Ink, and I'll tell you why I'm using the ink instead of the oxide, although that will do just as well, and Blueprint Sketch, one of my favourite all-time colours. The VersaFine clairs that I'm using Nocturne for all the stamping. I'm using Golden Meadow for the foliage at the bottom, Purple Delight for the lavender, Verdant and Green Oasis for some of the green foliage at the bottom. You'll need paintbrush, smoothie. I've added some Posca pens, some stickles, Glossy Accents, and then I've cornered my card with my corner rounder punch. So we'll get started. I'm putting a piece of paper inside my folded card to protect the inside of the card. And I'm going to take this gorgeous stamp, Floral Wreath, and inking it up first with Nocturne. There's a lot of detail on this stamp, so we want to just tap it lightly all the way around to make sure you get all the pieces to it. And I'm just going to hang it over the edge of the card like this. Got that beautiful, beautiful texture and depth. Inking it up again, and I'm just going to stamp it off once so that when I stamp it this time it looks as though it's a bit further back. And I'm going to do that again to create my third piece of foliage hanging down. Again, stamp it off, and this one I'm going to create at this angle. Voila. Then I'm going to use my gorgeous Rory and Darcy. I'm taking Darcy first. She's such a cutie. She's got this sweet little bonnet hat on. And I'm going to put her down here as though she's pointing to the berry that's hanging down. And I'm going to take Rory, ink him up, and I'm going to set him, wanting to make sure that his hair doesn't disappear into that berry there. Lovely. So that's those two. Now I'm going to put my foliage along the bottom. I'm going to start with my field grass and my two shades of green, starting with the darker one. First and second generation stamping, so that you get a depth, a texture and a difference between each of the feathers in the grass. Then I'm going to use my lighter green, my Verdant. Oh my goodness, I love this green. It's one of my favourites. And again, just in between the other pieces of the grass. You can always come back to it, fill it in later if you feel like you've got too many gaps. Then I'm going to take lavender. This is one of my first time stamps I ever bought. Well, in the first batch of stamps I ever bought, because who buys one stamp, right? So inking up using Purple Delight. And again, first and second generation there, because you get quite a different colour on the second. Just interesting variation, because it gives us depth. And you absolutely can just have fun with this. You can't make a mistake. Then I'm going to take Mini Leaf 1. That's from the pound range. But any stamps. You could just use any stamps from your stash. And here I'm using Golden Meadow. And I'm just going to pop a few of these at the bottom. You know, it's just looking, maybe it's looking like weeds or some leaves that have fallen in. And you can see that colour just adds real lot of depth to the garden that we've got at the bottom there. Now, as I said, you might want to come backwards and forwards going, I feel like what I've landed up with here is my lavender is pretty uniform. Don't want that, so we're going to go back in with another Purple Delight, another few strands of this one, and I might even put another one right in the middle of them. There we go. So you can see by just adding those couple of extra stamps there, we've now got a bit more interest and height in that flower garden. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go all around the edge with my purples. I'm using Dusty Concord and Shaded Lilac. You'll get a reasonable effect by just using one, but I do find that when you layer two colours on top of each other, you get a depth that you can't otherwise achieve. Taking my smoothie, and I'm just going to start off the edge in a circular motion and move all the way around the edge of my card. I start off my card and move it onto the card. That way you don't get any big smudges. And I also want to make sure that you get, it's a very light colour, but just make sure that you get some depth in the bottom of the flower garden. There we go. That's our Shaded Lilac, just a gentle light application of colour. I'm now going to go in with Dusty Concord, which will create a darker, deeper shade around the edge. Again, still keeping it moving. That makes sure that we don't get any unsightly blobs, scratches. Now we're putting some extra heavy colour here at the bottom of the flower garden. It'll make it look a lot denser and as though there's a lot more flowers. Or spring blooms. And my goodness, the weather is warming up, so yes, the promise of spring is in the air. In the northern hemisphere, for those of you in the southern hemisphere, you've had your time, but I should imagine it's still warmish for you. There we go. So you just want to go just around the edge. There we are. One final thing we're going to do of the stamping is we're going to put our mini flutterby in there. This again comes from the pound range of stamps. And we're just going to put this flutterby just having a little look at one of these berries. I'm going to colour in some of the berries now, and this is where I said we're going to use distress ink. Honestly, your distress oxides will work just as well, the Elements ink pads will work just as well, but I'm going to use the ink because you get a more vibrant colour than if I'd have used the oxides, because the oxides are a fusion of paint and ink. These are ink, you just get a brighter finish. The oxides give you a slight chalkier look. So I'm just smushing a bit onto my mat, spritz it with a bit of water, and I'm going to use my paintbrush to colour in some of the berries. You're not going to colour each of these uniformly, and you're not even going to colour all of them, because that, well, you can do what you like, it's your card, but I'm not going to, because I think it just gives interest. Tracy's done all the hard work for us by giving us this texture around the berries. So you can go lightly on some of these lighter berries, darker on some of this where I've stamped first generation here. And this is so much fun. You can go as little or as much as you like. I am going to colour this one that they're both pointing to here, and make sure that these ones, as I say, are a little lighter. So you can just have fun colouring in these berries. Lovely. I'm just going to clean off my brush before we do the butterfly. For that, I've chosen to use Blueprint Sketch, which, if you followed me for a little while, you'll know is one of my favourite colours. And just lightly paint in the butterfly. And of course, if you wanted to use different colours, go for it. If you want to layer it, there's so much detail in this butterfly, you could even colour in the different parts of his wings. But I'm not going to do that today. Now I'm going to take a variety of Posca pens. I've just chosen pink, purple, yellow, white, and we are just going to dot. These Posca pens are acrylic paint pens. So you can see I'm not thinking about this too much. I'm just randomly dotting around the flowers. Just gives it a bit of interest, a bit of fun. Now I'm going to use my yellow and my white at the bottom. They'll show up a bit more, almost like these are tiny little daisies in the dense part of the flower bed. And again, you can see I'm not overthinking this. You can dot it, stop it, do them in batches, in groups, in clusters. It's so much fun because you can't make a mistake. You honestly cannot. Just fun. Now, before I put my stickles, I'm just going to clip the edges here using my corner rounder. And then I'm going to use my stickles. I always test it a little piece off the card so I know how much pressure to apply when I'm putting the stickles onto their wings. Of course, you can use some of the fun new glitters. I might even put some on the butterfly, because butterflies' wings do glisten in the light. And finally, I'm going to put some Glossy Accents on. Glossy Accents is a clear dimensional, like a glue, and it often clogs. So I'm just going to put a tiny pin in the top of it. There we go. And by applying this Glossy Accents on here, I'm just creating some extra depth in the berries. Makes them shine a little, sparkle, and gives them some more texture. Again, I'm not doing every single berry, but I am going to do these ones down below where they are, pointing at them. It dries clear. If you shake it, you land up with bubbles, so I just keep a pin handy to pop the bubbles, but I do try not to shake it. So here we have Rory and Darcy in the flower garden, welcoming spring. Thanks so much for watching. I'd love to see what you create. Bye for now.